there is no pain. Hey legends, this is I Am Manifestation. I'm your conscious manifestation coach, Cerise, and I help you get out of your own way so you can manifest your version of an awesome fucking life. So I put today's video topic choice to my followers on social media. And for those of you who do follow me on social media, you chose my story about how I've recently manifested a pay rise. So for those who don't know, if you've listened to my podcast, you'll know that I currently work part-time for someone else and run I Am Manifestation as well. And essentially, my part-time job is there to pay for my necessities so that I can focus on like not taking action out of fear around my business that would, backfire while I'm building it. I have a podcast. I think I've mentioned in a couple of podcast episodes about a previous business that I had and how I started to see my savings dwindle and I lost, faith. I didn't lose faith, but the fear kind of overtook my belief. And I ended up making a few panic buys and things like that to try and make it work, which wasn't even a business I wanted to work anyway. So no wonder it didn't, because I wanted to build a business that I could do from anywhere, from my with just my laptop and my phone, which is what I'm building with I Am Manifestation. Anyway, so I did manifest. We're not technically in a recession here in Australia. I don't watch the news though. I don't think from what I have seen recently, that's just popped up on my phone. They're saying that we're not going to end up in a recession, maybe like a worldwide financial crisis, although I'm not putting that out there. It's funny that there's talk of it not being a recession, because I've been saying for months, like, what recession? I don't care. I've got more money than I could ever contemplate spending. So, I don't want to take credit for there not being a recession if it doesn't happen. No. But it's still a time where employers, are hesitant to spend on unnecessary costs, let alone give people pay rises. So in order to tell you how that happened, I need to go back as to why I knowingly took inspired action towards a result, an end goal, a manifestation, which I usually advise not to do, which I'll explain in a second. How I knowingly did that and got a win, essentially. So if we go back in time to, I had to check before this video because I needed to double kind of check the timeline. So I might be a little bit off on like how it went down, but this is essentially the story. So on the 20th of February, which I believe was a Monday of this year, 2023, I received an email at 10 p.m. on the dot. So they've strategically done that. They've done that because they knew a lot of people would have been calling them pretty fucking angrily during work hours if they sent it during the day. 10 p.m. from my real estate agent saying, here's notice of your here's notice of your rent increase, which will start as of the 1st of May. And it was almost $300 a month. It worked out to be around $65 a week. So I would have been able to do that if I didn't want to like eat or have a social life. And I was just like, and my initial thought was, shit, am I going to have to move? And I was like, no, I love this place. I manifested this place. Let me know if you want to know in the description below how I manifested my apartment. I also manifested my cruisy ass job, which is like even like more awesome now when I finish this story. Let me know if you want to know how I manifested that. And I was like, no, but like I was still upset. I was like, I don't know how though. Like, and like I always say, don't worry about the how. The how is not your job. So I did initially have a bit of shock. I was like, fuck, wasn't expecting that. The amount did worry me a little bit. And I messaged my mum and I told her, like in a voice note on WhatsApp, and she was like, yeah, this is why you should watch the news, to which I responded, no, mum, this is exactly why I should not watch the news. Because if I had known prior to this about the story that she then proceeded to tell me about a girl who posted on social media that her rent had been increased $700, $300 a fortnight. Mine was not quite $300 a month. This was in Sydney, where my mum lives. I probably would have had a higher increase because I would have been worried and I would have been expecting a way higher increase. So I was like, no, Mum, this is why I shouldn't watch the news because it would have been worse. Which would have been like, anyway, I mean, I can't 100% guarantee that, but this is how manifestation works, right? So ignorance is bliss in terms of the news. I know it sounds ignorant, but like you're not, I said this on a question sticker where I was asked about world issues, and I was like, as much as it sucks to say it, ignorance is bliss. And if you weren't looking at what was happening around the world and we didn't have the access to instant information and things like that that we do now, I don't think that that must not be named would have been as bad, honestly. And you know, if you're not aware of something, you can't be affected by it either. You can't be worried about something happening that you don't know about, or you know what I mean? So sure, you can probably like imagine it because it's within the realm and the parameters of the game of life on planet Earth, but you like would be less likely to come to the conclusion that any of these world issues could happen unless you know of things happening like that or know of things actually happening now in other parts of the world. That's not to say that you can't do things to help finance, like monetarily, and take action to volunteer and all those things. You can totally do that and still manifest that you live in a better world. Peaceful, loving, accepting, kind, etc. Anyway, tangent. So I ended up crying, like before actually, no, sorry. So mum sent all those messages and I was like, no, I don't accept that. I don't accept that. I was like, you know what? I'm going to email my landlord. And she was like, there's no point in doing that. People have been doing that. And because they can get away with it at the moment with the way interest rates are going and all that shit, which I'm not 100%, like I don't know that much about all that stuff. I'm learning. But she was like, they can do it. They're allowed to do it. It's fully legal. And so the real estate agents are going to just be encouraging the landlords to get as much as they're allowed to get. And I was like, no, I don't accept that. This is all via voice note, still on WhatsApp. I was like, no, I don't accept that. It's all going to work out. But I did get upset. I started crying and I called mom. I was like, sorry, I just need to like get it off my chest. It's a little bit like just cry and get it out and like think out loud for a second. And she was like, that's cool. And it's okay to do that. You know, I make little like funny trending audio videos on TikTok and things like that that people like get really upset about. It's like for comedic value, right? And there's only like a few seconds, like I can't explain in that it's actually okay to get upset in the initial moment. It's okay to like, it's definitely okay to release your emotions. I've done a video on TikTok recently about that, about how it's actually good to get those emotions out at least, but it's just not good to like let those lead your thoughts down a negative path. Let it be that you're releasing the old story that didn't serve you with those emotions, or like exercise if that's how you deal with like the feeling of anxiety, to get that out of your system in a healthy way. But you keep your thoughts on track still, regardless of how you feel. Otherwise, you're just going to be replacing the energy that you're releasing with those emotions, or you're moving your body or whatever with more of that old story, and it'll just create a negative feedback loop. So I called my mum and I was upset and I was like, I just need to like cry a bit and think out loud. And she was like, that's cool. And before I did that, I sort of said to myself, no, I'm not moving from this place, because I did think initially like, fuck, I'm gonna have to move into a cheap place. I was like, no, I manifested this place. I'm not moving until I want to move, because I will eventually move from here, but not until I want to. And I just thought to myself, it'll all work out. I'm not going to have to not eat or not have a social life or anything in order to make this work. It's all going to work out. And like, regardless of whether they stuck with the increase that they suggest that they wanted in the first place or not. And then I called my mum, and sure enough, an instant manifestation was my mum offering to pay my rental increase until my business made enough money to sort it out, or until I eventually got a pay rise. Eventually. And there's infinite ways that a solution can come about, or a manifestation or an end goal can come about. And I knew that. And I didn't want to go about things that way. Thankfully, sorry, I've got fluff on my nose. Thankfully, like my parents make decent money in their jobs now. What is going on? Thankfully, my parents make decent money in their jobs now. They've had to overcome a lot of limiting beliefs that they grew up with because we had financial struggles at times when I was younger. Pretty bad ones at times. Sometimes we were good. But there was a lot of tough times financially. And I grew up in a rough area and things like that. Thankfully, my parents have like unknowingly done self-concept work essentially, where they've kind of gone, no, fuck that. Fuck all the stuff that happened. Fuck all the stuff that people said. We know like that we're better than the experiences we've had. We deserve better. And they have. Now, my mum's worked where she's worked for, I think, over 10 years or almost 10 years. So like this long service leave that comes with that. She's had many pay rises, decent pay rises, thanks to her bosses. They're great people. They treat her well and they appreciate her. And I've seen my mum work jobs in the past where she wasn't appreciated. My dad, both my parents left school as teenagers, so they're not technically educated, but they're not they're not, I don't want to say stupid, but they're not unintelligent people. But they didn't believe in themselves. They thought people who grew up in the circumstances they did and all those limiting beliefs that I'm sure a lot of you can probably relate to didn't have like the big successes that you see and all that sort of thing. What I am very grateful for, and I've said this on my podcast, and I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but bear with, is that my parents always said to my brother and sister and I, do, and be with whatever and whoever you want to be, do, and be with. As long as you're happy and you're not hurting anyone and no one's hurting you, we support you. And I'm so grateful for that because I know that's not everyone's experience growing up. So yeah, I mean, essentially my dad also realized that my mum's always known that she was intelligent. Dad's always been good with numbers, even though he didn't finish school or neither of them went to university or anything like that. But my dad realized, and I kind of feel like I big upped him a little bit with this, where I was like, you're not like stupid, Dad. You probably just like when you were growing up, they probably just didn't, they only like taught to a certain learning style and it probably just wasn't your learning style. And it's just about figuring out what works for you. And he's done that and he's studied and he's moved up in his job and now makes decent money there. He's also a workaholic. And you don't have to grind. Dad kind of likes the stress of work. Some people do. If you're one of those people, you're nuts. That's not the life for me. And you don't have to grind. You don't. But my dad genuinely loves his job as well. A lot of most aspects of it. So what I'm trying to say is like, that's not something that I expected when I called my mum for her to say, did I even say what she said? She said she would cover my rent increase. I think I said that. Oh my God. Can you tell us the end of the day? So yeah, mum was like, you know what? I'll pay your rent increase until your business gets to a point where you can do it without worrying. And I was like, I love you, mum. Thank you so much. It's good to know that that option's there, but I'm going to say it's no thank you for now at least. It's all going to work out. And she was like, you teach manifestation. I know you'll work it out. And I was like, I love that. I love that my mum is like my biggest support of my business. And she said that like she believes in manifestation, but she doesn't really like look into it from the aspect that I teach it from. She's kind of more spiritual still. For those who don't listen to my podcast, I've talked about how I've kind of come from that and then came to understand that it's what's going on up here. And I have a podcast episode, I don't know why I did that. I have a podcast episode on things that I can see now from that are under like the spiritual umbrella terms that are used and things like that I see from a conscious manifestation perspective now. So definitely go check that out. My podcast is linked below. So I said to Mum, no, thank you. There are infinite ways that this can work out for me and it's going to work out. I know that it's going to. It's good to know that that option's there to fall back on, but it's going to be fine. It'll all work out. And she was like, I believe you. You're a manifester and I've seen you manifest some awesome things. I believe you. And I did say that I was going to, I think I mentioned earlier, I did say I was going to email the real estate agent and Mum was like, that's not going to get you anywhere. I was like, no, I don't accept that. I'm going to do it anyway. And this is the thing, okay? So I usually teach not taking inspired action knowingly, doing it, not knowingly taking inspired action towards your manifestation, because most of the people who come across my content are new to conscious manifestation and or new to the law of assumption, and they are at that place where they like just really, really, really want what they want, which is fine. You're allowed to have what you want. But usually when you're in that place, you haven't built enough faith yet that the action that you take isn't attached to fear. So I checked in with myself. I was like, if I send this email to the real estate agent, does that idea firstly make me feel anxious or any opposing emotions? No. If I don't get the response that I want, will I panic or go into fear mode about this all working out? And I was like, no, because it's still going to work out. And thankfully, I had that fallback of my mum's offering. And I know that not everyone will necessarily have that or be at the point where they've worked on their money mindset enough to be at that point. It's something I've had to work on. I still work a part-time job. I'm just being honest with you guys. But that was enough for me to take that action, knowingly take that action. And so that's my advice to you. I have some videos on that on TikTok now where I say, like, for those of you who have been doing this for a while, you've built the trust and faith in your power. It's okay to sometimes, not always, because don't forget, you don't want to narrow the infinite amount of ways that something could work out for you, which could be more efficient ways, bigger, better, more ways, I did a video on that, bigger, better, more, than the one that you're taking action to create. You can also take action knowing that that's an interim solution and something bigger, better, more is going to happen for your manifestation as well. Okay, remember, it's all about what's going on up here. So I checked in with myself. Does the idea of doing it make me anxious? No. If I don't get the response I want, will that send me on a negative spiral into fear mode? No. So I sent the email to my real estate agent. I kept it short and sweet. I said, that's a huge increase. Can you please put to the landlord this amount? I gave an amount that I was like kind of willing to go up to, was my max that I was willing to go up to. I could have made it work regardless, but again, I just wouldn't have had a social life or food. And I mean, I love food. And that was just a number I threw out there. I said, I've lived here for 7 years. So like, essentially they would have had to replace the carpets, repaint everything. Like, there's general wear and tear from someone living somewhere for 7 years. I've lived here for 7 years. I treat the place like it's my own with respect. I'm not putting holes or anything. Treat it like it's my own. I pay rent on time every month. I always have. And my fourth point was, I've rarely needed anything like any maintenance done at the cost of the landlord to the place, which I believe on my leases I'm able to get up to $1,000 a year of maintenance or upgrades done. And that could be the addition of like NBN if anything needs to be done. I can like if the internet needed to be upgraded or anything needed to be done to the property in order to do that, I could request that up to the amount of $1,000 a year. I don't make any of those kinds of requests, and I very rarely needed any maintenance done. So I said, if you could please put that to the landlord and see what he comes back with. And remember, my mum had literally just said they're allowed to do it, so they're not, and the real estate agent is going to be encouraging the landlord to stick to it. But I was like, no. I also have a story that, like, I've met my landlord a couple of times. I have a story that he's a pretty understanding guy. He's always been very nice to me. He comes when the maintenance people come to make sure that they're doing shit properly and stuff like that. So that story was also there. So this was all Monday night that happened. I can't remember if I sent the email to the real estate agent that night or the next day. Then I had work on Wednesday, and I was thinking my boss was going to be in, and I was like, I knew I was going to get I just knew that I was going to get a pay rise before all of this, like, the financial, like, crisis fear that's happening in the news and stuff started happening. Just because I know, like, I've manifested a cruisy job with a cool boss. But when all that stuff sort of started happening, I was like, well, I'm not going to push it, and then the rent thing came and I was like, I'm just going to ask. I know it's all going to work out regardless of the result. Do I feel anxious or anything? No. Will I be thrown off my thoughts if I do it? Ask. And I don't get the answer that I would like. No. So I was expecting my boss to be in that day and he wasn't. So I called him in the afternoon and I said, look, I feel really cheeky asking this, but essentially I've just been told that my rent is going to be going up. I said, I don't know if you've heard, but rent increases are happening at the moment and mine's supposed to be going up almost $300 a month or around $65 a week. Is there any possibility at all of a pay rise? And he said, I'll have to look at the numbers. Leave it with me. Let's talk Monday. And I said, okay, cool. No worries. Thank you for even looking into the numbers. That same day, I believe it was, I got an email back from, it was 2 days after I sent it. So I did send the email to the real estate agent on the Monday. And then Wednesday, I received an email back from the real estate agent saying the landlord is prepared to take the increase down about $20 a week. So instead of a $65 a week increase, it was down to $45 a week. And I was like, amazing. I said, look, obviously that's not what I was hoping, but that's amazing news. I'll let you know if I can't swing the rest of the increase with adequate notice. Can you please pass on my huge thanks to the landlord? I am very understanding that it's an income stream for him, and I appreciate that he considered my circumstances and request. Oh, because I said in the email to them as well, I work part-time for various reasons, and here are all the pluses of essentially making me a happy tenant. But we're not in those words, but the dot points that I gave before. So I was like, sweet, that's a little bit of a win. And I told my mom, happy days, celebrated. Celebrate those wins or use that to reaffirm when you're feeling good about a win. Even if it's not the full manifestation, it's part of the manifestation. Keep reminding yourself of that. So I was like, look, it's already working out. Sweet. Mum was like, yay, with me on the phone. And then she was like, that offer's still there though. For the rest of the amount. I was like, it's all good. I've got this. Like, look, it's already happening. It's all happening. Monday rolls around and my boss doesn't say anything to me straight away, but he grabs me in my lunch break. I was just in one of the rooms around the office on my lunch break. And we went into a room. He's English. He's very straight to the point. And he sits down. And I was sorry, that was me enacting this, sitting down. I was expecting it to be like, has we been so far? No, straight to the point. He was like, okay, so I've looked at the numbers. And before I tell you how much the pay rise was, I need to preface by saying that the general rule of thumb for a pay increase that's not attached to a promotion in Australia is like 1 to 3%, which I don't even think would have covered the increase that was left, to be honest. But I was like, it'll still all work out regardless of whether he says yes or not, or whether it covers the rest or not. It's part of the end goal, right? To cover this rent increase. He goes, I've checked the numbers. I can do 10%. I was in a bit of shock. And honestly, I didn't want to, I'm not one to take the piss. I always tell you guys to not question it when someone wants to offer to help. If you're someone who's quite proud like me, I used to never accept help from people and things like that. You can see it when my mom offered help. I was like, no, I love you, thank you, but it'll work out another way. So I said to him, that is way more than I was expecting. And just knowing where things are at and everything, where his mind might be at about extra costs and things like that for his business, I was like, that's way more than I was expecting. Are you sure? And he just said, I think that's fair. And I always these days I have a story that and it's proven with you guys, for example, I'm like, my clients love paying full price for my products and services because they know that I'm really whatever they're paying is a bargain for the value that I offer, kind of thing. And so, that kind of carries over to the mentality of like, I'm appreciated where I work as well. I didn't always feel that. There's plenty of jobs that I've had where I'm like, I've run myself into the ground and I've been shown nothing but a lack of appreciation. And I've looked back and realized that I got paid fuck all considering how much work I was doing, how much I was expected to do in my hours of work and all those things. So I've had to change that story over time. And so now it's like, yeah, before I even like before it became a knowing, before it became a belief, I just told myself. And then that's how anything you see, hear, think, and say enough times becomes a belief. Or an assumption, same thing. So he was like, yeah, I think that's fair. That pay increase would have not only covered the original rent increase of about $65 a week and given me extra money. I now had, from taking 2 lots of inspired action out of no, like without fear, decreased the rental increase by $20 a week and ended up with even more overflow money from my pay increase that I got, my salary increase. I mean, what else do I need to say? At this, like, and all the things were there to discourage me. My mum telling me about the news and about how like people had been trying to like, um, complain about rent increases and to get them knocked down and everything. And it happened within a few days that I got the rent increase decreased, if that makes sense, to a lesser increase and got my pay increase. So the moral of all of that is build your belief by manifesting in all areas. Like I always say, no matter what's happening, it could be someone getting like, it could be people getting in your way on the footpath. This is one for me because I used to be like, I try not to say that I have pedestrian rage, but as a non-driving person, I've experienced some pedestrian rage. When people take up the whole footpath and it's like a footpath where there's plenty of room. It's like, why can't you just single file to let people walk past? So like I start like with everything. I'm like, people always part like the Red Sea to let me walk through. I've always got a clear, safe path to wherever I'm going, or clear, efficient, safe path to wherever I'm going. When I've needed to pay for things that I would have normally held onto my money and thought I'm not going to like get that because I'm not going to say I can't afford it, because I always tell myself I can't afford it even if I choose to buy that thing or not. But there've been things where I've just decided, okay, I'm going to spend that extra couple of $100 on something that was not in my budget to buy. And it'll come back to me plus some. It'll come back to me in excess, in overflow. Everything I spend comes back times 10. I like to sometimes rhyme these things because they tend to get stuck in your head on a loop without you sort of being conscious of it, like a song does. And then it's like effortless affirmations just happening in the background almost. But you can increase that. Everything I spend comes back times 100. Everything I spend comes back times 1,000, whatever. I always have way more money than I could ever spend. So manifesting in all areas is super important because that will help you build your belief more efficiently. It's okay to knowingly take inspired action as long as you check in with yourself. Do I feel any opposing emotions coming up when I think about taking this action? No. If taking this action doesn't result in the like outcome that I was hoping for, will I get upset or spiral or be thrown off my thoughts? No. Okay, then you can take that action. But don't do that every time because like you'll know yourself, like what you're like as like yourself, right? Like we're all different. Would you start to get addicted to taking that action and forcing things? Because you could be cutting yourself short of like the results that you can achieve. Because if you're narrowing all the infinite ways that something can come to you and expecting like a certain percentage, for example, to pass a grade, which I had with a client recently. She was like affirming that she got a certain percentage, which was just enough to pass. And I was like, well, no, let's change that to I always do better than required to pass my tests or reports or whatever it might be, exams. that doesn't narrow down the opportunity for you to only just pass. It leaves it open for you to pass with honors or whatever. I didn't go to university or anything, so like, or college, wherever you are in the world. So, but like, you know, leave it open. If you're constantly trying to take the action to get a specific result, you could be capping your result when there could be like above and beyond. So for me, my job isn't the only way that I make money, and I'm, you know, manifesting a business that is like so that I don't have to work for someone else. I've got it pretty good in terms of having to work for someone else, and I manifested that. But, you know, bigger, better, more. We want to keep that open. I think those are the main points for this. I did waffle a bit more, which is sometimes why I like TikTok videos, because it forces me to keep it short and concise, whereas in a YouTube video I can waffle more and I can go off on tangents more. But a lot of you do tell me that you appreciate my tangents. You get a lot out of my tangents. If you do and you haven't listened to my podcast yet, there's plenty of those on there, so it's in the description below. Yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. Again, I do apologize that it was a bit rambly. It's the end of my day, and I'm ready to just wrap up. But thank you for being here as always. And until the next one. Oh, do you know what? I don't think that I said anything you need to know about my coaching services and products, subliminals, freebies. I've just released a new freebie. All those are in the description below if you're interested. Thanks for being here. You're a fucking legend. Don't you ever forget it. And until the next one, have a good one.